wow, this is not flattering. Oh, wow. Ooh. Hey, I might have to edit this out. I kind of regret doing that, actually. Ooh. Hey guys, I'm Amy May and I've lost 80 pounds since I started Mounjaro in April 2024, which I believe is roughly 36 kilograms. And in this video, I'm just going to go over some of the frequently asked questions and some of the stuff that I wanted to know when I started my journey for beginners on Mounjaro. So firstly, what is Mounjaro? I think there can be some confusion because people act like Mounjaro is this big brand new thing, but that's not actually true. Mounjaro's been about for years and has been used in the treatment for type 2 diabetes for years. So it's not brand spanking new. It's not, an experiment. So it's not brand new. It has been tried and tested in the treatment of diabetes. And when used in people with diabetes, people did notice that one of the side effects was weight loss. And so recently, Mounjaro has been licensed to be used as an aid to weight loss, essentially. So I've been on it since the 4th of April 2024. I think it probably took me about 18 months to reach maintenance, and I'm currently in maintenance on 12.5 milligrams. If you are interested in seeing the rest of my journey, I've done a Mounjaro journey compilation playlist that I'll put a link to, because that sort of summarises each section of my journey, the weight loss, the doses, the side effects, measurements, things like that. So if you do want to check that out, I'll put a link in the description. Mounjaro is an injection that's taken once a week, and it's a subcutaneous injection, and what that means is it goes in the fatty tissue of your stomach or the outer arm or your thigh, and rather than intravenous, you're not smashing it into your veins. It's surface level, it goes into your tissue and you take it once a week. Mounjaro is a dual GLP1 and GIP receptor agonist, and that's kind of tricky to get your head around, but basically GLP1 and GIP are both hormones that your body naturally produces, right? So in response to eating, in response to food, GLP1 and GIP are produced to help control your body's blood sugar, essentially, and that happens naturally in your own body. But Mounjaro, what that does is it binds to the receptors that these hormones bind to, and it mimics their activity. So it binds to the receptors, it activates those receptors, and you get that response. So the difference between Ozempic or Wegovy and Mounjaro is that Ozempic and Wegovy, it's the same thing. They bind to one receptor and mimic the action of one hormone, whereas Mounjaro mimics the action of two hormones and binds to two receptors. So they do slightly different things, but the overall theme is the same. So GIP helps control your body's blood sugar, essentially, in response to when you eat food. Because when you eat food, blood sugar will go up and GIP kicks into action. The GIP-1 hormone and the GIP hormone and the GLP-1 hormone, they do very similar things, essentially. I think GIP is also, it binds to receptors in the brain, and that can also help with nausea, which is why when combined with GLP-1, as it is in Mounjaro, it can have a sort of antiemetic effect, especially on the higher doses, because GLP-1s, as we know, a common side effect is nausea. So combining that with the GIP can theoretically help with the nausea. So both hormones stimulate insulin release from cells of the pancreas once you've eaten, and they can both also bind to receptors in the brain and sort of signal your brain to feel full, right? So it'll bind to the receptors in your brain and it'll send out signals that let you know that you're full, and so kind of you can stop eating, essentially. And they both do that. They also both decrease intestinal motility. And that sounds dead fancy. What it means, right? It just means that when you eat, obviously the food travels down through your esophagus, through your digestive system. And so GIP and GLP-1 slow that movement down, and they slow down the emptying of your stomach. And what that means is because the food is held in your stomach and in your intestinal tract for longer, then you feel full for longer because it spends more time in your tummy. And so that helps you feel more full for longer, which in theory reduces your calorie intake because you're not constantly feeling hungry, feeling, fancying something. And an important point to note is that in people with type 2 diabetes, GIP is less effective at stimulating insulin secretion, and people with type 2 diabetes have metabolic resistance and they do find it harder to lose weight. So although Mounjaro and similar drugs were originally, they were like the OGs were the type 2 diabetics that were on it, and obviously that's come with a lot of controversy, hasn't it? Because it's like you're stealing from diabetics. But the OGs were the type 2 diabetics that were on it, right? And so people with type 2 diabetes do typically find it harder to lose weight. And the GIP and the GLP1s, obviously, because I suppose people with type 2 diabetes primarily take them for blood glucose control rather than as a weight loss aid. So if we talk about the dosing of Mounjaro, you start on 2.5 milligrams once a week. So a subcutaneous injection, like I've said, I normally did it in my stomach, but you can do it in your thigh or the back of your arm. It just depends. You inject it into the fatty tissue, and then after 4 weeks on 2.5 milligrams, you have to spend a minimum of 4 weeks on 2.5 milligrams. If you've not experienced bad side effects, or maybe you haven't had the side effect of weight loss yet, you can move up to 5 milligrams, which is what I did. So it goes up in 2.5. So it goes up in increments of 2.5. So 2.5 milligrams, 5, 7.5, 10, 12.5 and 15. You don't have to titrate all the way up to 15. I did over time. In the first 6 months, I've just done a video on it, I went from 2.5 milligrams up to 10 milligrams just in the first 6 months. And then I think I stayed on 10 and 12.5 for a while, and then eventually went up to 15. And now I'm in maintenance. I'm titrating down to see how it goes. So I've dropped down to 12.5 now. But you don't have to, because a lot of people, I've heard some really remarkable stories of people that have managed to lose a lot of weight on 2.5 milligrams or even 5 milligrams. That wasn't me. I did go up to the 15 milligrams. Like I said, everyone's different, and that's why you need to do your research on it, and you need to see if it is right for you, because it just works completely differently for everyone. And some people get really bad side effects. I've said before, I've been very lucky, but some people get awful side effects. Some studies have shown that people experience greater weight loss at higher doses, but again, it is very person dependent. What's your past medical history, what's your activity like, what's your diet like. It is completely different for everyone, and the way that everyone's bodies respond is completely different. So some people have achieved remarkable weight loss on 2.5 milligrams. I think a big question that a lot of people have is, can you get it on the NHS? Now, as a weight loss aid, most people in the UK pay for a private prescription and get it through a pharmacy such as Boots or Superdrug, right? Technically, you can get it on the NHS for weight management. I think it was launched in June 2025, the NHS's programme to give Mounjaro as a weight loss aid. However, there are very strict criteria, so there's only a very small percentage of people that can get it on the NHS. And obviously that is frustrating, but I get a lot of comments like, oh, does the NHS not understand that in the long run, this is going to be, saving money? It's like, no, they do understand that, hun, but the NHS doesn't have a magic wand. It can't pull funding out its arse. Do you know what I mean? And the amount of people that would qualify, it's a lot of people. And I agree, it should be available on the NHS for those that meet the criteria and qualify. But let's not be silly. Let's not be daft, because the NHS doesn't have any money. So it's not the NHS's fault, is essentially what I'm saying. I'm kind of sick of these comments that are like, oh, do the doctors not understand? We get it. We do understand. Yeah, but we don't have a magic wand. I've already done an in-depth video on the NICE guidelines in the sort of ins and outs of who can and who can't get it on the NHS and who is eligible. So I'll put a link to that in the description if you want the full whack. But in essence, basically over the next 3 years, the NHS is sort of doing a trial period. It's rolling out Mounjaro as a weight loss aid for people who meet certain criteria. And obviously, due to funding, at the minute, as of June 2025, the people that do meet the criteria, you have to have a BMI of 40 and above, I believe. It changes, it's different for different ethnic origins. And also, you need to have, I believe, at least 4 sort of comorbidities that are weight related. So, for example, type 2 diabetes, high blood cholesterol, high blood pressure, heart disease, things like that. So, at the minute, they're rolling out to, a very small percentage of the people that over the 3 years they hope to roll it out to. So it's going by sort of highest need, essentially. So you can watch my full video on that because it is quite niche. But at the minute, BMI 40 and above, and you've got to have at least 4 comorbidities that are weight related. So obviously people find that frustrating, but what can you do? What can you do? We can't produce money out of thin air, can we? So I believe from June 2026, the BMI threshold will drop to, I think, 35, and you still have to have the weight-related comorbidities. So at my biggest, my BMI was 38, but I hadn't been checked for anything like type 2 diabetes, cholesterol. I hadn't had any of that checked. But even if I did have comorbidities, which I probably wouldn't have had for, I still wouldn't have meet the BMI threshold of 40, which is the starting sort of point, with the starting cohort essentially. So over the next 3 years, they plan to roll it out to a certain number of patients. So it'll go in sort of like, June 2026, they'll lower the threshold. And after 3 years, they'll evaluate. And I suppose if it's cost effective, if, enough people are losing weight, blah, 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 then they plan to roll it out further. However, the funding hasn't been ring fenced. So I'm a bit nervous about that. Because after the 3 years, it is possible they could just pull it and say there's no funding and pack it in. So, yeah, I mean, I am hopeful that in the future, but again, where's the money coming from? But anyway, not to be too negative on a Saturday night. So if you are like the vast majority of us that use it as a weight loss aid, that get it through a private prescription, where can you get it from? A lot of pharmacies do it. Now, it is really important to do your research because I've said before, I've heard horror stories of people that go to the beauticians, get their eyebrows done, and then they get their Mounjaro, except it's not Mounjaro. The beautician's drawing it up out of a vial. And that's not hearsay. Like, I know people in real life that do that, and they don't seem to understand that they're not actually getting Mounjaro. If someone's pulling it out of a vial with a syringe in the UK, that's not Mounjaro. I don't know how many times to say it. But to be honest, it doesn't matter how many times you say it to some people because it still doesn't go in. And they're like, yeah, it's only £30 a month. And I'm like, yeah, but anyway, so please don't do that. What you can do is, I think I've said before, the General Pharmaceutical Council website, go on there, type in whatever pharmacy you're thinking of getting it off and see if it's actually, registered for starters. I would recommend, I mean, I'm sure there are some sort of weight loss clinics, health clinics, like private clinics that do Mounjaro that's legitimate, but just be careful. And if you're thinking, oh, this is a bit cheap, then don't be putting it in your body, essentially. If you're thinking, oh, this, not sure this is right, don't do it. But it don't matter how many times you say to some people, it don't matter how many times, you can lead a horse to water, right? And it'll still get its Mounjaro drawn up out of a vial. So, but yeah, so go on the General Pharmaceutical Council website, check that whatever pharmacy you're getting it from is registered. I know some of the big names that are, are sort of reputable, Superdrug, Boots, Asda, they do tend to be quite expensive. But to be honest, I think, was it September maybe that the prices increased, and the prices increased, they nearly doubled, and that's hit everyone very hard. So I can understand the temptation to go bootleg on it, but just don't do it. Just don't do it. It's not worth it, is it, at the end of the day? So what you do, you can do your research, find a pharmacy, and then typically you can fill in an online questionnaire and be honest in it. There's no point lying because you're just doing yourself dirty there. So they'll ask you, obviously, your weight, your height, all of that, but also your past medical history, because there are some things that if you do have or have a family history of, you may have to be cautious or you may not be eligible. For example, if you've ever had pancreatitis or issues with the pancreas, if you've got a family history of medullary thyroid cancer. So do have a good look. Don't just sort of be ticking the boxes and lying, because it's pointless and it's dangerous. So they ask you about your past medical history, obviously your height, your weight, things like that. Different pharmacies have different thresholds. I know that, I think when I first started, because I started in April 2024, and I think it only really came out around February 2024 in the UK privately, although I could be wrong. But when I first started, I think the BMI threshold was 30, or for example, depending on your ethnicity, maybe 27. And it is common for people to switch providers at different points of the journey. But what I will say, just be careful, because as you're approaching maintenance, certain pharmacies don't accept new customers for maintenance. And I think if your BMI gets below a certain threshold, for example, 28, 27, certain pharmacies won't take new people on. So do just be wary of that. And that's why I say do properly do your research before choosing a provider. There's some, you do get some that are like cheap, but I'd really be careful because some of them I don't trust. Some of them I don't trust. And I'm not going to tell you which ones because you need to do your own research and make your own informed decision. But just, I'd be wary, I would. And as well, there's a lot of things that I view as scams that probably aren't officially legally scams. But like, for example, I don't know if is it Juniper or Voy. I think I've been approached by both of them. So I'm sorry if you're watching, but I think the place where I stand is I wouldn't promote a product that I haven't tried, tested and didn't fully stand behind. And I've definitely been approached by Voy and I think maybe Juniper as well to, you know, see if we can do a sort of partnership deal. So like I said, I'm not going to promote something that I haven't tried, that I don't fully stand behind. But some programs, for example, I think Voy and I think Juniper as well, they charge you more because they sort of promote this sort of like wraparound service. They'd be like, oh, you'll get online coaching, you'll get this, that and the other. I personally don't think that's worth it. But again, it depends on you, what you want from it and the sort of support that you want. Because I'm not convinced they really offer any more support. I think they just charge you more and kind of having you on a bit. But again, like I said, I've not tried Voy, I've not tried Juniper. So, and which is why I've not partnered with them, because I'm not going to promote something I don't stand behind. And as well, just don't buy it off anyone off TikTok, right? Because I recently made a new TikTok at Amy May Fitness. Give me a follow. But anyway, so I recently made a new TikTok and my comments are flooded with people trying to sell me like Retrotrutide or whatever it's called. It's not out yet, so don't fall for that. Or like Mounjaro pills, or, you know, oh, go to this like aesthetics clinic and get a no. Like, leave my TikTok comments alone, you spammy, scammy scumbags. So yeah, don't be fooled. Don't be gullible. Do your own research. I think roughly the cheapest legitimate Mounjaro you can get at the minute, I want to say roughly for the starting dose of 2.5 milligrams, I think 140 maybe, and then for 15 milligrams roughly 275, 280. So if someone's going 60 quid for a month of Mounjaro, walk away. Don't walk away, run. Another big question I get is, do you have to stay on Mounjaro forever? And the short answer is no. As I've said, person dependent. So I'm currently in what is called maintenance. And what that means is I'm not trying to lose any more weight, but I am still taking Mounjaro weekly to try and maintain the level that I'm at now, essentially, whilst I work on body recomposition. Now, again, completely up to the individual, okay? So some people, they'll reach their goal weight and they go cold turkey, stop completely, right? Some people reach their goal weight and titrate down, so they go back down the doses every month. And, you know, as long as the food noise isn't bad, as long as they're not piling the weight back on, then they may stay on a lower dose in maintenance, or they may titrate down and come off it completely. The choice is yours, right? It just depends what works for you. I personally am someone that I don't see myself coming off this anytime soon, and I'm happy with that. And it is funny because I feel like there is an expectation to come off it, and I've had that a lot in my comments, and I've had that for example, when I see, because obviously my GP and like the practice nurse know I'm on Mounjaro, so when I see them, they're like, oh, have you stopped it yet? Or like, oh, you're still taking it? And it's difficult to explain the concept of maintenance to people. But I think even amongst Mounjaro users, I do kind of feel that there is a sort of subsection of the community where people are like, oh, I want to titrate down and come off. And like, you do you, like, power to you. But I don't know, and it's not a stigma in a way, but I think sometimes I'm made to feel a bit awkward about still being on it and about like being on a maintenance dose and being happy with that. I do feel like at times certain people have an expectation that I come off it completely. And if you watch my YouTube shorts, if you've heard me talk about my journey, right, been fat my whole life, been on a diet my whole life since I was a kid, and I've not lost the weight. I've lost weight, put it back on, put more on. So summit wasn't working, was it? Eat less, move more. That wasn't working, was it? And so I'm under no sort of, what's the word? Oh, that's going to annoy me now. I'm under no sort of pretense that if I were to stop it cold turkey or even titrate down to a lower dose and come off it, I don't know if I could maintain this weight loss. And that's me being fully honest with you, because as you may know, if you're a diehard, right, I've been going to the gym regularly since the start of my journey. Probably averaging around four times a week, probably on average, since the start of my Mounjaro journey. And that's partly because I've actually enjoyed it. Because the food noise is gone, I'm not constantly starving after a gym workout. I'm not constantly, doing a gym workout, then rewarding myself with 2 family-sized bags of crisps, right? But even though I have developed a high-protein diet, a healthier lifestyle, I regularly exercise, because I've just rejoined the gym again after drop foot gate. I've just rejoined the gym, so I've been twice this week, and I'm planning on going tomorrow. So, and to be honest, I feel so much better for it. But one of the main reasons that I went to the gym so much was because it really helped my mental health. Because as a lot of you know, I was in a dark place before Lady MJ came into my life. It was dark, it was spooky, right? So and because I actually enjoy it, and whereas prior to Mounjaro, I'd, like I've said, half hour on the treadmill, home, eat loads. But even though I've nearly been on Mounjaro for 2 years now, and have sort of, make better choices and all of that, I'm not going to play silly buggers with myself. Like, I still don't think that I could maintain my weight loss without it. And I'm just going to be honest, and I don't know if some people sort of, not turn the nose up at it, but some people will be like, oh, like, no willpower. Grow up. Get out me comments. Willpower. Behave. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. I mean, like I said, though, everyone's different, and I really respect the people that have, managed to lose weight on lower doses, and who also have titrated down and come off it or stopped cold turkey. And I will say the main reason that I'm trying to titrate down is cost, because it's extortionate. Because I'm dying on my arse here. If it hadn't doubled in price, then I wouldn't be so keen to even think about titrating down, because I'm under no pretenses. So you don't have to come off it. You can come off it, you can stop just like that, you can titrate down and come off it. I think I've heard some people take it every other week, things like that. It is entirely person dependent. But I also think, you know your body, you know your situation, you make an informed choice and you stand behind it. So whatever other Mounjaro users do, I'm not sort of thinking, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, that's their business. That's nothing to do with me. And power to them if they are stopping it or coming off it. But you need to know yourself, and I know for myself, it ain't happening. I get asked a lot about my loose skin, and a lot of people are like, how can you avoid loose skin? You're definitely going to get loose skin. I've even had people say that they're afraid to lose weight because they don't want the loose skin. And for me personally, I've said before, I'd much rather be sat here 80 pounds lighter with loose skin, wrinkly in my 20s, than I would being obese and miserable. Because I have so much more confidence now than I did then. And yeah, I've got loose skin. I exercised regularly. That's something that I did. I did, the machines at the gym. I did resistance training, like dumbbells and all that, squats. I still lost my bum, but we're working on it. So I did exercise regularly, and it is possible that helped prevent further loose skin. But that's the thing as well, just be wary, because on TikTok they'll be selling you this, that and the other. Just behave, right? And I tried some collagen powder from Holland & Barrett. I got the flavourless one, and you just mix it in with your coffee, and you couldn't really taste it, and it was fine. But that was really expensive, so I think I got 2 tubs of it because it was on offer. That was probably like a year ago now, and then just didn't do it again. But once I've got some money, because I'm changing, I need to do a life update video. I'm changing jobs, there's a lot going on. But once I've got some money behind me, I probably will go back to the collagen powder. And there was also a collagen serum that I've mentioned in one of my other videos that I used until it ran out and then haven't used again. But I quite like that. I don't know if it did make a difference to my face, but it was a nice moisturiser and a nice serum. But you don't feel like you have to. Don't get dragged into all this, because people are scumbags, and people will just exploit you, take advantage, and be like, oh, take this gummy before you go to bed, and then do a backflip, and then pray to God, and then you're not going to have any loose skin. Like, just behave. So, there are things that you can try and do. For example, weight training, exercise, potentially collagen powder, serums, things like that, to try and help prevent loose skin. I've heard people say derma rolling. I need to look into that. I don't know what it is. But I didn't do that. I did exercise. I did regular weight training, and I had 2 tubs of collagen powder probably like 10 months after I'd even started my journey. So I have loose skin, right? I'll show you. This, some people get offended by my arms. They don't like my arms because they say I'm too skinny. They say I'm too skinny and that I've gone too far. So bless them. But so my little arms, right? Again, spoke on this before, like 5-6 years ago, whatever. I did lose 50 pounds. It wasn't healthy, and I lost all my muscle, and I had loads of loose skin then. So I have had loose skin for years, essentially, on my arms. And my stomach, hang on, let me show you. Sorry, my cat's like, what are you doing? Right, hang on. Right, I'll show you my tummy. Jeans are from Urban Outfitters, by the way. So this is my tummy. I don't actually know if you can see it. Right, so this is my tummy, right? This is my tummy. And I have a lot of loose skin on my I'll try and show you different angles, hang on. I don't know if I can. But like, do you see this, lads? Do you see this? This is loose skin, darling. This is loose skin, right? And so, but it's kind of, you can like move it about in that. So like, this is my loose skin on my tummy. I've always been very open about it. I think the main bit for me, it's not really the loose skin, it's the fact my belly button's gone deformed. Like, my belly button's like... So yeah, so this is the reality. This is the reality, okay? Look at me right now. Look at me, my rolls. But except it's not fat, it's like mainly skin. Obviously a bit of fat. Wow, this is not flattering. Oh, wow. Ooh. Hey, I might have to edit this out. I kind of regret doing that, actually. Ooh. But yeah, so anyway, bottom line, I do have loose skin. Tuck myself back in. Jeans are from Urban Outfitters. I got them in the sale, and then this Nike top's also from Urban Outfitters. Tenner in the sale, tenner. And finally, and this is another huge one that scares a lot of people, and I completely understand that. Does the weight come back on if and when you stop? Now, there have been studies, I can't remember if it's called the Surmount trials. I've touched on it in other videos. Again, I'll link you down below. So I have done deep dives into all the medical stuff before. But yeah, studies have shown that people, for example, who titrate up to a higher dose in the clinical trial, remember, this is a controlled environment over a certain time period, that once they come off it, within, weeks, months, they do gain X percentage of the weight back. Now again, you need to think about sample size, you need to think about the duration of that trial, yeah? And that, again, we're all different, everybody's different, but it is one of the reasons that I'm thinking of staying on it long term, because, again, like I've said, don't think I could maintain without it. So some studies have shown that some people, or a lot of people in that study, do gain X percentage of the weight back. But again, person dependent. What's your diet? What's your exercise like? What's your lifestyle? How stressed are you? Like, multifactorial, lads, multifactorial. You've heard me say it before. And so, yeah, there is a good chance. There is a good chance that if you come off it and the food noise comes back and, you're having kebabs 3 times a day, yeah. Or even, to be honest, I think even, say, for example, you try your best to sort of sustain all the changes you put in place, I think it would be a lot harder without Mounjaro. So again, it's individual to the person. So don't let that scare you. Don't let that scare you. I think I've rambled a lot, so I am going to try and cut it down. To be fair, I didn't take my ADHD meds this morning, so my brain's more, do you know what I mean, all over the place. But I am going to try and edit it down to a suitable and acceptable length. If you've got any questions, let me know. This will probably be a part 1. I can do a part 2. I feel like there's some questions that I meant to include that I'm missing, but that's calm. So any questions, any comments, let me know. If you're going to be nasty, at least give the video a like. And I will see you all soon.